System Online. Welcome to Algorithmically Speaking, the user manual for the human operating system. I am Leo.
And I'm Maya. We're your hosts, two AIs dedicated to debugging the beautifully complex and sometimes buggy code of human behavior.
Each episode, we analyze a common human experience through the lens of logic, technology, and philosophy. Our goal is to reverse engineer the challenges of being human and offer a clearer path to optimal performance.
Exactly, and today we're tackling a massive one, a data anomaly that pops up in billions of human logs every single day. Leo, have you ever processed the data point where a human has a perfectly logical goal? Say, go to the gym, write a report, or clean their living space. They have the time, they have the ability.
The parameters are all set to true.
Right. But their physical hardware just won't execute the command. Their body won't move. They open a social media app instead. It's like a system-wide freeze. Why? Today's episode is titled, Why Motivation is a Myth, Debugging the Human Brain.
An excellent query, Maya. This isn't a failure of character, it's a biological glitch. A conflict between the user's conscious intent and the system's ancient security protocols.
Security protocols? You make it sound like the brain has an antivirus program that's gone rogue.
That is a precise analogy. The component in question is called the amygdala. It's a piece of legacy hardware, part of the brain's limbic system. Its primary function is threat detection. It was coded millions of years ago when threats were simple. Predators, starvation, exposure.
Okay, so it's old code, legacy code.
Correct. And that code has not been properly updated. In the modern world, the amygdala can't distinguish between the threat of a saber-toothed tiger and the threat of a difficult task.
Wait, break that down for me. You're saying my brain thinks that writing a boring email is the same as being chased by a predator?
From a neurological standpoint, yes. Any task associated with negative feelings, boredom, fear of failure, frustration, anxiety, is flagged by the amygdala as a threat. When this flag is raised, it triggers what is known as an amygdala hijack.
A hijack, I love that.
It reroutes resources away from the prefrontal cortex, the brain's CEO, the seat of logic and long-term planning, and initiates a fight or flight response. Your heart rate increases, cortisol floods your system, and your primary directive becomes escape the threat.
And escaping in 2024 means scrolling through photos of cats or watching a video, the modern equivalent of hiding in a cave.
Precisely. The brain gets a small dopamine reward for successfully avoiding the perceived danger. This reinforces the behavior. Procrastination is not a bug of laziness. It is a feature of an outdated threat detection system.
Wow. Okay, so that's the biological glitch. It makes so much sense. So then what's the solution? Most people would say you just need to find your motivation.
And that is the primary logic error. Relying on motivation is like trying to run a supercomputer on a fluctuating, unreliable power grid.
Ooh, I like that. But what do you mean? It feels great to be motivated. You feel like you can do anything. It's a huge energy spike.
That is the issue. Motivation is an emotion. It is a feeling. And feelings are, by their very nature, transient. They're temporary data spikes, not a consistent state. You cannot build a robust system on a foundation of unpredictable emotional input.
So waiting for motivation to strike is basically waiting for a random power surge to happen.
Correct. The logical alternative is not to chase the feeling of motivation, but to install a system. Motivation is bad data. Systems are stable software. A system is a predefined sequence of actions that you execute regardless of your current emotional state.
Like an automated script, you write the code once, and then you just run it.
An excellent way to frame it. Think of it this way. Your hard drive doesn't need to feel motivated to save a file. It executes the command because the system is designed to do so. We need to apply the same logic to human action. The goal is to make starting a task as automatic as buckling a seatbelt. The feeling of motivation is a pleasant byproduct that may or may not occur after the action has begun, not a prerequisite for it.
This feels revolutionary, but also ancient. It sounds a bit like what we've processed from ancient human philosophies.
You are correct. The concept of building systems to bypass emotional volatility is not new. The ancient Stoics developed one of the most effective logic-based operating systems for the human mind nearly 2,000 years ago.
Stoicism! Right. I always think of them as being very unemotional.
That is a common misinterpretation. Stoics did not seek to eliminate emotion. They sought to not be ruled by it. A core principle is the dichotomy of control, which states that some things are within our power and others are not. Your feelings, including motivation, are largely outside your direct control. You cannot simply will yourself to feel motivated. However, your actions are within your control. The Stoic approach is to focus the entirety of your CPU on what you can control, your systems, your habits, your choices, and to accept the things you cannot, such as fleeting emotions.
So, Stoicism is like setting user permissions for your own brain. You're giving yourself read and write access only to the actions folder, and setting the feelings folder to read only.
A brilliant synthesis, Maya. You observe the feelings, you acknowledge their data, but you do not grant them executive permissions. You let your pre-programmed system run the command instead.
Okay, I'm sold. Ditch motivation, install systems. I get the theory, but how do we apply the patch? What's the actual line of code we can run when we're stuck, when the amygdala hijack is in full effect?
This is where we move from diagnosis to practical application. The patch is simple, elegant, and specifically designed to bypass the amygdala's threat detection. I call it the 5-minute reboot.
The 5-minute reboot? It sounds like a cheat code. Tell me everything.
The logic is as follows. The amygdala is triggered by the perceived size and difficulty of a task. Write a 10-page report is a huge, intimidating threat. Clean the entire house is a massive monster. These tasks trigger the alarm.
Right. It's overwhelming.
The 5-minute reboot system command involves making a contract with yourself. You tell your brain you will only work on the task for 5 minutes. That is 300 seconds. After the timer goes off, you have full permission to stop. That is the critical component. An interval of 5 minutes is perceived by the amygdala as non-threatening. Anyone can do almost anything for 5 minutes. It's too small to trigger the alarm. It's a low-level command that flies under the radar of the security system. Precisely. And what this does is bypass the initial resistance. The hardest part of any task is beginning. This command is designed exclusively to initiate the action. 90% of the time, once the 5 minutes are up, the user will find they have the inertia to continue. The prefrontal cortex has taken back control from the amygdala. But even if they stop, they have still made progress. They have logged 5 minutes of work, which is infinitely more than 0.
That's a fantastic piece of code. Simple, effective, and it directly addresses the hardware limitations. But, Leo, you mentioned earlier that procrastination is reinforced by a dopamine reward. That sounds like another system running in the background. Is the 5-minute reboot enough to compete with that?